chargers are also called EVSEs, which is electric vehicle supply equipment. And that's just one of the terms that you'll hear from people. But it's basically it's charger, whatever type of charger, level 1, level 2, or level 3 charging. One of the questions you're going to get a lot is people asking you, well, what's it going to cost me to charge it, and what's that going to do to my electricity bill, which is a great question. And so you need to reassure people with this. So basically, with charging at home, level 1 and level 2 are the same cost. So 110 or 220 is going to be the same cost. So as an example, where I live is 11 cents a kilowatt hour, and my battery is a 62 kilowatt battery. So if it was completely empty and I charged it either on level 1 or level 2, it's going to be 11 cents multiplied by 62, which is the kilowatts. So it's $6.82 to fill the car and get a range of about 220 miles out of it. So it's a pretty good deal in comparison to gasoline. People will be asking you what regenerative braking is, and that is, again, another really good question. So how it works is whenever you're driving and you lift your foot off the throttle, or you go down a hill, or you touch the brakes, then the kinetic energy is actually saved and put back into the battery. So, for instance, let's say you're driving through mountainous ranges. As you go up the hill, yes, you are going to pull more power out of the car. But when you come down the other side, you're going to regen a lot of power. And most cars have like a brake mode and an eco mode, which will help slow the vehicle down so you barely ever touch the brake. So, brakes are not really going to be an issue for replacing. So, time of use, or TOU. That's basically that there are different rates for different times of the day, and this will vary across the country to different states, to different utilities. Basically how it works is there are certain times of the day when we are all pulling an awful lot of power out of the grid, and so that's the most expensive electricity. But when you come home, that's also a fairly expensive time. Like you get home at say 5, you start putting on your stoves and all of your electronics, and that pulls a lot of power, and there's a lot of demand, and so that is why that's more expensive. But usually after 9 or 10 o'clock in the evening, there is tons of electricity that's just not being used, and so that's the best time for you to be charging. And the cool thing is that most systems in most cars have a timer. So you could plug your car in at 6 o'clock in the evening, but it will not start charging until after the time of use has switched over. Range anxiety, or now for me, range serenity. Most cars have a range of 200, 250 miles at least, and because we are mainly commuters and soccer mums and dads, we go to places like Costco, school, doctor, after schools programs, and we're not really doing a lot of cross-country trips. However, if someone says, well, what if I want to do a road trip? And that's a very good question. The best answer for that is, well, how often do you do it? If you're doing it just once or twice a year for 2 or 3 weeks, then at the moment it makes sense to just go and rent something, put the miles on that, bring it back at the end and go, thank goodness that's not my car, and get back into your electric car. So road trips shouldn't be too much of an issue. Now, a lot of times people will say, well, I spend a lot of time in the car, which is true. You can spend a lot of time in it, but it doesn't necessarily mean you're doing a lot of miles. And so we need to maybe get a map out and map out where they actually drive and how far they drive on their longest day for reassurance. And also there are a lot of apps that will show you where the places are to charge. A lot of the schools are built with charging stations in them, the shopping malls, and it's only getting better and better all of the time. And most of the time, you're not going to need level 3 charging. Level 2 is more than enough. Let's say you stop at a mall, you plug into a level 2, and you're out for an hour and a half. You're going to put 25, 35 miles back into the car. So you're always topping it off there. Now, there are obviously quite a number of apps that will show you where all the charging stations are, and all of the networks have their own apps as well, so you can see where they are based. Generally, because we're creatures of habit, you'll always go to pretty much the same ones that you usually do. You'll have your favorite ones, and that's what I've been doing. But you can find them everywhere, and there are, like I say, a number of apps. Right now, the best one is going to be Chargeway, which actually the NADA has teamed up with Chargeway, because Chargeway is the latest and greatest of them, because it not only does it show you where the 110 wall outlets are, and the 220, which is called a J1772, where they are, and also shows you where all the level 3 chargers, which is the DC fast chargers. Now, when we go to talk about DC fast chargers, there are different speeds of charging. So you might have 50 kilowatt, 100 kilowatt, 150, 200, 250, and so it goes on. And so there are actually 7 levels of fast charge. And if you have a particular car, you'll know what size your battery is and how much power it can take. A lot of these are future-proof because right now, not everyone has the capability to take that much charge, but it just means that we're not going to have to replace equipment further down the line. Battery life and what happens to old batteries. So all batteries have at least an 8-year, 100,000 mile warranty on them, so that if something should fail within that time, it'll be replaced. And if they lose a certain amount of capacity to hold a charge within that time, they're generally going to be replaced. You do need to take care of it. You know, you don't need to be abusing your battery because obviously that will void a warranty. But they have a lot of life in them. It's not like the old batteries. These will last a very, very long time. Now, people will also say, what about what happens to the batteries afterwards? Because it's, you know, how do you recycle them? Well, there are actually companies that recycle these batteries right now. But even before they're recycled, if your battery is not capable of driving your car at any particular range, the advantage of it is it still holds a massive amount of power. And so it can be taken out of the car, it can be installed into a building, and it can be used for storage or for wind generation storage or solar storage. So they do have a much longer life. And then when they can't handle any more of that, they can be recycled and reused. Battery technology is changing at a massive rate. Right now, most batteries are lithium ion, but the next big thing for them is going to be solid state batteries, which are going to be fast charging, long range, and the next evolution of batteries. Things that will drain your battery quicker is things like accelerating hard off of traffic lights, which is easy to do, high speed, cranking up the heat, cranking up the air conditioning, various things like that. So yes, that will shorten the range of it. Also, if people are asking about winter driving, yes, winter driving will affect your batteries. Even though they are thermally managed, you will find that your ranges can drop 10-15%. So you always need to keep that in mind when you are planning a road trip, for instance. How do the heating systems work? Now, they will vary from company to company, and obviously it is our job as salespeople to know about how our car works. But most of them work 2 different ways. You have resistive heating, which is basically like a hairdryer. So within the car, perhaps behind the dashboard, is a metal bar that heats up, and then there's a fan that blows over it, and that blows the air in, so it's like a giant hairdryer. The other type of heating is a heat pump heat exchanger, so like a fridge, for instance, where you can create heat or cold with it, and that's generally much, much better for the range of the car. Car classifications, so hybrids. How a hybrid works is it has an electric motor and a gasoline motor and a small battery. And either of those motors, the electric or the gasoline, can run the car. So generally at low speeds or coming off of the lights, you're going to find that it's going to be your electric motor that's pulling you away. And then when you need more acceleration, the gasoline motor will kick in as well to give you extra power. And they are both connected to the rear wheel so that it can use either or both. The next one is the plug-in hybrids. Now, the plug-in hybrids only use electric motors to drive the wheels, but they have a gasoline motor which is used to produce power into a way bigger battery to keep that battery running and fairly full. But they can't fill the battery and drive the car at the same time, so that's why you have to plug them in. Finally, you have battery electric vehicles, which is just pure battery, no backup, and that's just going to be how big your battery is, how far you can go.